This seminar is called Self-Improvement, and right now I'd like to describe some aspects of self-improvement. There are 5 layers of the human energy field. There are 5 structures in our body through which knowledge penetrates. Consciousness is an attribute of the soul that controls various manifestations of our life and our body. We live in the material world. Therefore, we have a physical body which consists of what we study in anatomy, and this includes the nervous system, which is part of the physical body. The Vedas also describe a subtle energy body. In modern psychology and medicine, they are just coming to this understanding. They study various electric fields and so on. But this is not my discovery. This is a discovery from the Vedas. 5,000 years ago, it was recorded that a human being has a subtle structure. In Ayurveda, about 500,000 nadis are described. These subtle channels connect various subtle structures. These include the mind, the subtle body of the mind, the subtle body of intelligence, the subtle energy that moves through our body and creates interaction between subtle and physical bodies. This interaction is also influenced by egoism, the sense of self-esteem, and the feeling of being an individual. This is also connected with the subtle energy body. The most subtle mental structure is the feeling of oneself as an individual. It permeates everything, and even the physical body is infused with a person's egoism. Intelligence controls both subtle and physical bodies. The mind is the structure where in fact everything happens. The mind controls the whole body. Mind is connected with our karma. Mind is connected with our interactions with each other, and so on. And when we talk about the 5 structures that control consciousness, the first one is connected with the physical body. This type of consciousness which controls the physical body is called Annamaya, where Anna means matter or food. We will now list all 5 types of consciousness, 5 types of self-control. So Annamaya, this type of consciousness associated with the physical body. It starts developing, meaning consciousness becomes very active in the physical body from birth. When a child is very young, they perceive the world from the position of Annamaya, from the perspective of matter. That's why they need to taste everything, because they perceive the world on the platform of their physical body, and they need to experience everything through their mouth. A child determines how to live through the sense of taste, and the child only has bodily needs. They live according to the needs of the body. They need sleep, food, and protection. This is their life. Then, as they grow a little older, starting at 3 years old, they gradually become very active. Their activity increases and consciousness begins to penetrate the subtle energy. As a result, the next stage of development, namely the penetration of consciousness into the subtle energy, causes the child to become very active. And you know how quick little kids are, they're impossible to catch up with. Especially by the age of 6 or 7, they move at speeds we just can't match. This is because subtle energy is developing in children and they are very active, practically never getting tired. By the time they reach 13, consciousness starts moving into sensory activity. The senses are attributes of the mind. There are the senses of hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. These are called the 5 tentacles of the mind. They develop after 13 years old, and it is through them that consciousness strongly penetrates. Sensory activity in children at this age is very strongly developed. That's why they are highly sensitive to the world. It's difficult for them to see what's happening, hard to hear, and so on. In other words, their consciousness is focused on sensory activity. Consciousness moves on to the intellectual platform called Manamaya. So consciousness shifts to the mind, and therefore intellectual activity begins here. This includes thinking, sensory activity, logic to some extent, as well as memory, learning to some degree, and so on. This is all intellectual activity, and therefore at this age, children are very emotional. Their mind is very active. They think a lot. Before they ran around, played football, but at this age they started to communicate more, because communication is also a form of intellectual activity. It's emotional communication. Not communication with the goal of grasping the truth, but simply communication with the goal of feeling happiness from the interaction. Various forms of creativity also develop very actively at this time. It developed before, but at this age consciousness strongly shifts towards intellectual activity. Manamaya reaches its full strength by the age of 25 in men and by 18 in women. And from here, there's an opportunity to develop the next level of consciousness called Vijnanamaya, meaning consciousness can move into intelligence. A person begins to develop a sense of purpose, seriousness in life, and attempts to understand what faith is, who God is, what the soul is. Now more serious aspects of life become important. The next, highest level of consciousness, which not all people achieve in their lives, is called Anandamaya. This type of consciousness can only be reached through spiritual practice. Spiritual practice can begin in childhood and results can come at any time. There are holy people who became holy in their youth. Therefore, it all depends on the development of the individual. Self-control begins with controlling the body. And for this, the most important thing is to learn to control intelligence well. If we can purify intelligence, everything will be under control. Intelligence means when you say something, you do it. That means a person is capable of changing themselves. They develop good habits. They can keep vows. They can understand what humility is. These are all manifestations of the strength of intelligence: humility, ability to keep your word, keeping vows, the ability to think about goals, a person's faith, the ability to achieve goals, and determination. This is all a manifestation of the functions of strong intelligence, but not always can a person immediately make their intelligence strong. For some people to whom this is naturally given, it is not necessary to start with self-control of the body. They can simply begin spiritual practice immediately, and through prayer alone they achieve everything. However, even those people who pray and are seriously engaged in spiritual practice take great care to ensure that the body does not interfere with this, because there are certain bodily functions that strongly influence consciousness. I was recently at a holy place and witnessed such a situation. One person who has been seriously engaged in spiritual practice all his life developed cancer. He needed medical help so that he could pass away in a calm state, concentrating on God. The body is a serious thing. It often prevents even enlightened people from living normally. Imagine a malignant tumor spreads to the head, and the contact between the subtle body and the physical body is disrupted. A person cannot maintain clear consciousness. Their consciousness is clouded. And this is very unfavorable, because one should pass away in the right state of consciousness to go to where one needs to go, to the spiritual world, to higher planets. Even a spiritually developed, mature person needs to keep the body healthy because there are different situations in life. Sometimes the body prevents a person from concentrating on something elevated, from controlling oneself. Therefore, controlling the body is not a trivial matter. It is a necessity for everyone, for those who don't understand how to control themselves, as well as for those who have already mastered self-control. The right attitude towards the body is a very important part of life. We were able to ensure that this person passed away with clear consciousness. Until the very last second of his life, he remained in clear consciousness, thanks to the correct medical help. But that's another topic, and we won't cover it today. We'll talk about how to control the body, how to ensure that the body doesn't interfere with living. The first thing we need to understand is that in our deep memory, in the depths of the mind, there is karma, which is the force influenced by space and planets, creating a specific mental state in which we live. Often it seems to us that this mental state is connected to those around us. That means we think that they are the cause of our problems. For example, my wife annoys me a lot, it seems so. But if we conduct a certain analysis, we'll see that today she annoys me, but a year ago she treated me very well. A year from now she will treat me well again. We can analyze and see that it's not always the case that a loved one brings me problems. Sometimes they bring problems, sometimes they don't. There is a science called astrology. Astrologers correlate moments of suffering with a person's chart. They simply state, your suffering related to your wife will end in 6 months, for example. And the person thinks, this is nonsense. Will she really stop tormenting me in 6 months? She's been tormenting me my whole life, and she will continue to do so. Then about 6 months pass, maybe a little less or more, and everything calms down somehow. And a person thinks, it's just a coincidence. We bought a house, that's why my wife stopped tormenting me. Then he comes again, and the astrologer explains something else. If the astrologer is good, they will predict these things, and again the problem will be solved at a certain time. A year ago, an astrologer predicted a problem related to my work. He said that certain people at a certain time would start bothering me, trying to defame me, and so on. I thought, I haven't done anything bad to people. Why would someone try to defame me? I didn't understand why they told me this. I study astrology myself and checked this. And it seemed to be true, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I forgot about it, and then the time came, just as it had been predicted. I started having problems. I hadn't done anything bad. Everything was done behind my back. They slandered me a lot on the internet. I thought, wow, this system works really well. Everything works. I tested it on myself. Sometimes astrology is not always pleasant to experience, but at least you know what's coming. how much it might weigh you down, or, on the contrary, how it could help. So why am I telling you all this? Because there is a force that is beyond our control in the present. This force is related to fate. Time comes and a person starts feeling very bad, and they can do nothing about it. Raise your hand if within the past 6 months, for no apparent reason, without any causes you can imagine, you suddenly felt weakness that you couldn't overcome. Raise your hand. Are there people like that? Look how many there are. Because about 6 months ago, Saturn entered Aquarius. This sign can give some people weakness. So when it exits this sign in a couple of months, the weakness will pass. You can check all of this in your own life. Saturn is responsible for the functioning of the nervous system, the tone of the body, vitality, and the movement of prana in the body. One aspect of the body's condition is beyond our control. We can do everything that will be discussed in this lecture, but still, the time comes when the planned weakness arises. Then it passes when the time comes. The physical tone of the body, the level of health can sometimes be very poor, and then it can become very good on its own, and so on. So why is self-control needed? The point is, all these problems can be resolved to some extent. The thing is, there are periods when karma weighs down so much that a person can do little with their health, but at least they can maintain it in some way. Sometimes it slightly presses down a person, and working on oneself helps a lot. It can completely resolve the problem. And so the second aspect of health, which we will discuss now, is freedom of choice, the free will of the person. One aspect is karma, and the second aspect is free will. We can somehow make it so that the consciousness functioning in the body overcomes the problems that arise due to certain subtle power which governs our physical body. One part of this subtle power comes from fate, and the other part comes through intelligence and free will. You need to correctly set the mind, and it will neutralize the bad influence of fate to the extent that a person can manage. So difficulties in our life come from the planets, and help also comes from the planets. This world is structured in such a way that if we get into the right rhythm of life, it greatly eases our life. According to the Vedas, 2 celestial bodies, the sun and the moon, are deeply connected to the rhythm of a person's life. The sun gives activity to a person, gives life force, and provides the ability to act and live actively. The moon gives rest. Both are extremely important for the proper functioning of the body. If a person lacks the energy of the sun in their body, all digestive processes, absorption of nutrients, and even the subtle body will suffer as well. Digestion and nutrient absorption are disturbed, mental activity is disturbed, and activity of intelligence is also affected. All of this is connected to the sun's activity. It is a fact that we can be active at night, but this activity confronts the energy of the sun. When the sun rises, our energy increases. When does the sun rise? At 6 in the morning. What is the difference between actual time and solar time? Who has done the time calculation on our website? What is the difference between your solar time and the real time? 7:38 a.m. is like 6 in the morning in real time, right? This means you can sleep until 7 o'clock without any problems. Starting from 6 in the morning or from 7:38 a.m., your energy level begins to rise slowly, and people, like sleepy cockroaches, crawl out of their houses. The energy level has only just started to rise. It hasn't fully risen yet. Gradually, activity increases more and more, and at noon a moment of quiet settles in all around the world. What is this quiet moment called? Lunch. In Italy, even small shops close. In Turkey too, stores close. Everyone has lunch at this time. In some countries there is a culture where a person should not be disturbed while eating. Therefore everything closes and people eat. They have an hour of lunch break. This is a sacred thing. It's important to understand at what time this should happen, but we'll return to that in a moment. So what happens when the sun sets? The psyche naturally relaxes, people calm down, and the workday mostly ends. People say, if I work from morning until 6 o'clock, that's good. Let's say evening work until midnight is bad, and working at night is even worse. In some countries, those who work at night are given some pay raises because it's very hard to work at night. Because the sun at this time first moves downward until midnight, and then it slowly starts to rise, and a person has no strength. They activate life energy with their own strength, trying to keep life going with their internal energy, and this shortens life expectancy. Because this extra struggle brings our normal existence out of balance. Except for those who have achieved great strength in self-control. They have their own schedule. We will talk about this too, but right now we are talking about regular people. How to determine if you are a regular person or not? It's very easy to determine. If you can stay awake at night, pray, and still feel very good, you are an extraordinary person. Or if you need only 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and the rest of the time you stay awake and happy, if you can, using your willpower, quit any bad habit, and at any time you can make yourself do something important in life. And if your mental energy is very calm, you don't get overly tired in life, you are a very joyful person, constantly thinking about God, it means that the theme of the daily routine is not really necessary for you. Because you have already become stronger than your body, meaning your body doesn't bother you much. Now, I have a question. Why actually should your body bother you? Does body bother everyone or not? Does the body become younger or not? At first it becomes younger, and then after a certain age it ages, yes or no? It always ages, and why? Because it is made of matter. And material energy, unlike spiritual energy, is under the influence of material time. The Vedas describe that material time ages everything. This is the greatest force in this world which cannot be overcome. It is the force that every second of life increases the aging of all objects that exist. Scientists have discovered that each atom has a period of decay. We know that uranium has a half-life period, meaning they calculate and can see precisely. The electrons move a certain number of times around the atom, and then the atom no longer exists. Decay has occurred, and it releases a certain amount of energy. This means the electrons can no longer move the same way as they did before. That is the orbit of the life of the atom. It turns out that we also have our own orbit of life, the maximum number of years after which the death of this body will occur. For example, if you put slippers by the door and try to wear them after 30 years, they may fall apart, even though no one has worn them all this time. They accumulate dust, they begin to decompose somehow. When excavations are done, they find some objects lying for a very long time. When they are taken, they fall apart, even though no one has touched them during this time. Time itself disintegrates them, you see. In this world, nothing becomes younger. If you leave a car for 2 years, it will rust. Though it hasn't been used, it ends up in worse condition, completely falling apart. So everything material ages every second of life, and body also ages. But consciousness is the force that revives everything. We see that flowers grow, bloom, and children grow too. Children don't age. You don't notice them aging. A person begins to age after the body reaches a certain level, after which it can no longer get younger. The body develops, grows, it matures. If it continues to develop, a person becomes overweight, and there's nowhere else for the body to develop, it must stabilize. But it can't stay stable forever. The body gradually begins to wither. A person sees that it has become harder to get up, harder to eat, food is harder to digest, and it's harder to engage in sex. But this is revolutionary information, and you don't really perceive it about sex. Sex therapists say that sex is always good, meaning that old age doesn't affect sex. But according to the Vedas, it's a bit different. Old age also affects sex, the Vedas say. Is it okay that I mention this? Is everything fine? There are also problems with sleep. A person can't sleep as well in old age as they did when they were young. It becomes hard. They turn in bed and still can't sleep. By old age, all natural bodily functions become disrupted because the body is aging. And there is a force in nature that gives the body the possibility to function properly, even though it is prone to destruction. This stability in the body is called the rhythm of the day, the rhythm of the 24-hour cycle. The 24-hour rhythm was created by this world so that we can live normally. In order for us not to spend all our energy on maintaining the body, there is a specific rhythm that was created by higher forces on our earth. This rhythm is called the daily routine. Following this rhythm allows us to live very harmoniously and feel good without being too sick. When we violate this daily routine, different types of diseases come into our life. For example, a person decides to sleep longer. They think that sleeping until 7 in the morning is not enough. They need to sleep until 9, for example. They adopt this schedule. They think, there is no work, there is unemployment. I want to rest until the work starts. I want to rest. And so they begin to rest. What happens during this time? The sun rises. And when it rises, the energy of fire is activated. Active fire, healthy fire, it's called tejas. This fire goes into cheerfulness, correct thinking, proper digestion. It supports the normal life functions of the body. A person works actively, lives actively, and they feel happiness from this. This happens naturally when the sun rises. We don't increase the fire ourselves, and we don't make ourselves think, I need to feel hungry. We don't force ourselves to do that. When the time comes, we feel hungry. Who makes this happen? Who? Mind? The sun. The sun simply causes desire to eat. Of course, this desire to eat may arise at night, that's true, for those who are active at night. Naturally, this arises from overload, when mind is overexcited, but that's another story. Such a mind produces extra fire that begins to consume everything. Mind requires subtle food because it works too much. Therefore, a person needs something tasty to eat. They want to eat something tasty. They don't want to eat proteins, fats, carbohydrates, as doctors say. They want to eat something tasty. Because mind wants to eat, not body. Body might weigh 100 kilo, for example, and it has enough nutrients for 2 weeks, but for some reason a person wants to eat every 4 hours, some people every 6 hours. Everyone is different because the mind demands energy. You should understand that appetite or the desire to eat significantly increases in the first half of the day. This is connected with the sun. It is not connected with us in any way. The sun signals it's time to eat and we say, I don't have time, I need to work. All right, then there will be a problem. There is a concept called dosha pitta. What is it? It's a burning sensation in the stomach. It's a burning sensation in the eyes. It's a duodenal ulcer. It's a sensitive nature. It is irritability. It's hormonal imbalances when the pancreas overheats and cannot function properly. It's inflammation in all organs. It's diseased gums and rotten teeth. It's weak bones. Is that enough for you? Are you not writing it down? You should be writing. All of this happens for one simple reason. The reason is very simple. A person doesn't want to wake up early. When a person lies in bed, turning this way and that way, just lying there being lazy, they are a fool. Their mind says, it's time to get up. But they say, no, just a little longer, I want happiness. They think this is happiness, but it's a mistake in worldview. A person thinks, I'm not fully rested yet. Some wise people notice that the more they sleep in the morning, the more tired they feel and the more unrefreshed they are. If they get up early, they feel fine. If they lie in bed a little longer, they become sluggish. Why? Because destructive fire fills the whole space. What does fire control? The tone of the body, blood pressure. Fire controls our work capacity. When the sun rises, it requires us to act, to direct this energy of the sun into work. But it can't be directed into work because we are lying in bed. As a result, where does it go? It goes into the destruction of the body. Everything in the body starts to overflow with this destructive fire, which affects the tone of the blood pressure. As a result, a person gets up and feels dizzy. Why? Because there is too much destructive fire in the body, they cannot maintain a normal tone. Why? Because they woke up late. For some people, the sun has such a destructive effect that they can't oversleep at all. If they sleep in a little too much, they can no longer live normally. They feel weak all the time. They feel unwell and their mood worsens. Raise your hand if you feel weak all day after sleeping in too much. See, many people. Now raise your hand if you get very angry or touchy when you wake up late. Are there such people? Now raise your hand if you wake up very late and nothing changes, nothing gets worse. Raise your hand. One person raised their hand. How old are you?
39 years old.
And you have no problems, no issues at all? Doesn't your intracranial pressure rise? No? Are you sure? Does the back of your head hurt right here? You're trying to trick me. Your blood pressure is elevated even right now. Well, all right. One person raised their hand. Well, I'm not against it. It can happen, but it's very, very rare. Most people are highly influenced by the sun, so it's necessary to force yourself to get out of bed with determination. I had one patient. He came to me for treatment, but it didn't help. We used gems, but it didn't help. No matter what we tried, nothing worked. He himself is a homeopath, a very qualified doctor. He tried everything. He had serious problems, and I couldn't help him either. He came to me and said, thank you. He returned the gems to us and said, thank you very much. You really helped me. I said, how? I thought maybe he was joking. He said, while I was here, I took your book about the daily routine and started following it. It's a miracle. Everything is great with me now. And he explained it to me. He couldn't understand why at 9 p.m. he always felt so sleepy and why he woke up at 3 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. He said, what should I do at 3 a.m.? It turns out it's very simple. It's a whole science. Look, let's draw a clock face. 24 hours, where at midnight the sun is at the very bottom. I'm showing the top because we don't have a 24-hour clock face, but 12 hours twice. right? The sun is here, right? At the very top at midnight. We move 3 hours from midnight. What do we get here? 9 p.m. 3 hours here. What do we get? 3 a.m. If a person goes to bed at 9 p.m. and gets up at 3 a.m., this person feels great. Because a normal person needs to sleep 6 hours. If a person works physically, they need to sleep 6 hours. If they work mentally 7 hours, a woman definitely needs to sleep 7 hours, maybe even 8. If a person has a very stressful job, then probably 7-8 hours if the work is really stressful and hard. One way or another, it must be understood that midnight is a very important point because at certain hours, specific parts of our body rest. First, the subtle energy body rests. That means that from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. subtle body rests, and then the physical body also gets rest. If a person goes to bed at 9 p.m. and wakes up at 12 a.m., their mind will already be rested, but their body will still be fatigued. If a person goes to bed at 12 a.m. and wakes up at 3 a.m., their body will be rested, but their mind will be fatigued as they miss the rest time for the mind. Because the mind relaxes early. When does the mind relax? At 10 p.m. From 10 p.m. to 12 a.m., the mind becomes relaxed. Let's say a person has been running around like a racehorse, working, and afterwards they need time for themselves. They finish work late at 6 p.m., and from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. a person must take care of their family. This time is for love. They should spend time with their children, family, and so on, but instead they rush around until 9 p.m. Now they need to give time to their family. They try to do so, or they give this time to the TV. They dedicate their time to their loved ones or TV. If they have a beloved wife or children, they spend time with them. One way or another, they haven't managed to slow down, but they want to live and talk until midnight. For some, it goes on until 1 a.m. Then starting from 1 a.m. or from midnight, they feel they can no longer function normally because their body becomes very weak. They feel weakness and go to sleep. They give their body a chance to rest. This is a fact, but when they wake up, their mind will still be very tense. And to get back on track, they need 3 to 4 hours. They walk around like zombies for 3 to 4 hours saying, "I'm a night owl." They live like an owl. They first spend half the day getting themselves going, then they start working actively and can't stop until 10 p.m. Then they try to unwind, need to rest somehow, and again go to bed late. As a result, after many days of such a rhythm, what happens? The subtle energy body doesn't get rest. After 6 months, serious changes begin in the psyche. A person accumulates tension that they cannot relieve using usual methods. Let's list the usual ways to relieve tension. What's a usual way to relieve tension? Well, let's list all the usual ways to relieve tension. Alcohol, smoking, promiscuity. What other usual ways to relieve tension do we know? Drugs, a usual way to relieve tension. Next, what other usual ways do we know? Sex has already been mentioned.
You said promiscuity.
Did I say it wrong? Is sex a usual way to relieve tension? Fine. Besides promiscuity, there's also regular sex. Let's list the next usual ways. Let's go ahead. We're talking about usual ways. Sleep is not a usual way. TV and internet, right? Computer games, we forgot about those.
Talking on the phone.
Talking on the phone. Exactly. How could we forget? It's an insult to women. We forgot. All usual ways to relieve tension.
Eating.
Eating is such a great way, especially eating late in the evening. Why do we use such usual ways? Because the normal methods which I will now list, a shower after work is a normal way, but for some reason it doesn't work for us. This is because the mind and body are very tense. A shower, number 1. Then gentle communication with loved ones relieves tension. Calm, gentle communication with loved ones. Correct nutrition after work relieves tension. And reading spiritual literature, engaging in spiritual practice in the evening. This includes reading books and watching movies about the lives of holy people. Such activities help as they increase a person's moral level, increase love for family members, they start to forgive everyone, ask for forgiveness, reflect on how their day went, and try to restore order in the mind and body. One can go for a walk. Feeling sad? Well, then I'll go for a walk. One walks, wishing everyone happiness along the way. The person walks, wishing everyone happiness. You should spend evening time like this. In the past, people used to relax even better. They would sing songs, for example. They would go out with an accordion and sing. Other people joined. This is what the evening activities should be like. That's how it should be. It's culture. Cultural life means going out in the evening and singing songs.
In karaoke?
In karaoke, you sit and sing. Fine, if we can't go out, we can sing some good song in karaoke. Anyway, the idea is that this gives relaxation to the mind and prepares a person for sleep. But when a person gets up very late, this doesn't work. They can't do it, they need to smoke, they need to drink to relax. Because shocking paradoxical methods are needed to affect the mind and body. Simple methods don't work. By the way, a sauna once a week is very good for relaxation. A person relaxes with the help of a sauna. It's a scientific approach to heating and cooling. Everyone has their own way. There are no strict rules. Some people need very gentle steam, increasing temperature, meaning they need to sit in the steam room for a long time. Some need it quickly, with strong steam. Some need humid steam, others need dry steam. Some need to cool off with fresh air and walks. Some need to pour ice-cold water on themselves. Others need to rub themselves with snow. Some need to cool off with wind. There are different people. You need to study this for yourself. It's all individual. But sauna can provide a really good relaxation. 3 or 4 changes between cold and heat, and a person is fully relaxed. Their mind, body, everything relaxes. Especially in older age, this is important. If a person gets up very late, there's no chance to remove fatigue from the body. Sometimes a person has insomnia. What's the reason for it? Why insomnia? Insomnia means that the connection with the moon has been disrupted. The moon gives rest to a person. The sun gives activity. If a person consistently doesn't go to bed on time, doesn't respect their rest, doesn't go to sleep at least by 10:30 in the evening, it means that gradually their ability to rest, to connect with the moon, starts to fade. And what is the moon? The moon is the force that cools down the nervous system, mind, intelligence, body. What does it mean to cool down? It brings everything to a state of calmness. We have 2 types of energy in our bodies that are extremely important for our health. One type of energy is called tejas. This type of energy is intended for a mental or physical effort. When a person overeats significantly, the body needs to engage its reserve forces to digest everything. A person has reserve energy stores in the body. Where do these reserve stores come from? They come from the correct observance of the daily routine. For example, I have been following the daily routine correctly for 6 months. Then I've come to your city. And here, there are nutrition specialists everywhere. One nutrition specialist after another. And they cook so deliciously that it's impossible to eat normally. I eat and feel like a balloon sitting there. They say with hospitality, "Would you like some more?" And then I still have to give lectures. This means I need to accumulate tejas so that all the reserve forces are activated and everything gets digested. If I don't follow the daily routine, then the energy of the sun won't accumulate in my body to create this reserve. But let's not talk about overeating. Let's take cancer as an example. This living being settles in our body and starts growing. That being seeks to destroy our life. To defeat it, the body needs the energy of fire. Where does this energy of fire come from? The body gets it from the accumulated energy of the sun. If a person follows the daily routine very strictly, it's highly unlikely that cancer will develop. Why? Because all these cells are destroyed in time. This fire that accumulates in the body is meant to destroy microbes and abnormal cells in the body. This fire goes into the immune system. The immune system in our body exists due to the fiery energy. It's important to get up and go to bed on time every day. There is another type of energy called Ojas. Ojas is the energy needed for rest. It is the force of the body's recovery. When a person is very ill, it gives the feeling that healing is possible. Some people feel like they have no strength to heal anymore. And such a person is close to death. Where does this ability to endure illness come from? Some people can endure illness while others cannot. Where does the ability to endure come from? It is the power of sleep or the power of Ojas. When a person goes to bed on time, the moon has a very positive influence on their mind. The power of Ojas accumulates. During dental treatment, this person sits calm and endures, while another person might faint immediately. Why? Because they have no Ojas. As a result, blood pressure changes, adrenaline spikes, or something else goes up. The mind isn't controlled. There's a severe overheating in the body or mind. Overheating occurs. A man comes home from work, and his wife opens the door saying, "Why did you come home so late, you jerk?" He immediately starts to lose his composure. Why? Because there's no reserve Ojas. Because he goes to bed late, watching The Dead Don't Sweat until late at night. And as a result, his reserves are depleted, because the movie is interesting. But sleep isn't as interesting as watching the movie. He prefers to do what he likes, and he says, "All these routines are nonsense. I live how I want." He lives how he likes, his wife meets him at the door, and then the breakdown starts, because there's no calmness in the body. Calmness in the body comes from sleeping at night. Everything in this world is created very logically, and if a person does everything on time, everything correctly, they will have increased opportunities in everything. What should you do from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.? This is the best time to work on yourself. Some people say, I've lost myself. I've lost myself. The conclusion's very simple. From 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. you do nothing. You just lie around and waste time. You lie in bed and don't know what to do. Because when a person has lost themselves, they wake up at 3 a.m. They can't sleep at this time because the body says enough lying around. You need to do something else. Raise your hand if when you face difficulties in life, you wake up early in the morning and can't sleep. Raise your hand if during a difficult period in life, you can't fall asleep at night. The other half. If you can't sleep and wake up early in the morning, it means these life difficulties are related to the fact that you haven't included the process of prayer in your life. You haven't included the process of realizing your fate, your relationship with God in your life, and for those who can't sleep, it means their mental activity is misdirected. Those who can't sleep in the morning haven't spent enough emotional energy to live properly. Emotional energy always manifests only in relationships with God. But if a person prays in the morning, their emotional energy puts everything in its place. They begin to understand why their life is unfolding the way it is. They start to realize what they need to do to live properly, how to relate to others. They sober up and think, I didn't forgive this one. I treated this person badly. They didn't forgive me. At work, I'm constantly thinking about my salary. I can't work peacefully, and so on. During prayer, many things are realized in life, things that they're doing wrong. Because when a person prays, their mind is activated, they connect with God in their consciousness, and grace comes to them, they feel good. This means the pure power of knowledge permeates their being. And where does this pure power of knowledge go? To fate. It gives understanding of what to do, how to live. A person begins to live more consciously. But when a person doesn't act this way, they try to figure out how to live by their own strength. And when do they do this? When they are free from work. They come home after work, they disconnect from work, and they begin to think very hard. Because doing it by their own strength means thinking. They start thinking hard about how to live. They think a lot, and their mental energy gets overstrained, and then they can't sleep. They lie down and toss and turn. This means they are active in overcoming problems, but they're doing it incorrectly. Morning is wiser than evening, right? As fairy tales say, morning is wiser than evening. And what do? We decide to watch TV a little bit more. This is where the problem lies. We don't understand the importance of these things. We prefer to do what we like. It's time to get up at 6 a.m. But if a person wants to develop as an individual, they need to get up before 6 a.m., or according to your local time, before 7:30. Because I believe it was Lenin in 1919 who put the sun on maternity leave, creating a decree about time. And as a result, time shifted by an hour. People lost the understanding of what is right and what is wrong. For us, 6 a.m. doesn't actually equal 6 a.m. Because the clocks are constantly being moved around. We are strong, we can control time. But anyway, what happens? It turns out to be 7:30. However, from around 4:30, time in a person's life is the most precious. I'm speaking according to Riga time, as you would say. From 4:30 to 7:30, this is not time for sleeping. This is time to understand how to live further. And the only way to understand how to live further is prayer. Each of you has a tradition. Either you were born into some spiritual culture, or you chose your own faith. Each of you has something. A person cannot just live without anything, because if they live without anything, it means they believe only in themselves. And if a person believes only in themselves, it means that sooner or later, life will break them. Because there are events, and the Vedas describe 4 types of events in our lives. The first type can be overcome by one's own strength. The second type is an event that can be overcome with the help of strong personalities. These could be friends, specialists, etc. The third type of events can be overcome with the help of spiritual people, priests, and so on. And the fourth type of events is utterly insurmountable. It is such a strong event that only the mercy of God can help. No one can help, only the mercy of God. Such things do happen too. And people who don't believe in anything, who don't get help from anywhere, can only overcome the easiest type of events. In everything else, they flounder and don't know what to do. This all builds up over time. As a result, they have to drink alcohol to distract themselves from it all. That's why all normal, reasonable people take refuge in those who are spiritually stronger, in those who can help. This is a matter of knowledge. You can try. If you have some difficulty in life, you put up an image of a holy person, you start praying as they advised, and you need to do this early in the morning. When the energy is very calm, when the sun hasn't risen yet, but the moon has already set, between the right hemisphere, which is connected to the sun, and the left hemisphere, which is connected to the moon, there is balance. The psyche becomes very calm. There is stillness inside. And at this time, when the stillness is there, a person begins to look at the holy person and establishes contact with them in prayer. Because on a subtle level, nothing dies. Everything exists in this world. All saints continue to live. We just don't see them. They're not here on earth, but they are somewhere. And we establish contact through prayer. A person establishes contact with the holy person and starts to feel them after some time. At first, they just pray and don't understand anything. After some time, contact is established. A person begins to feel the connection, and after a while, this connection gives a sense of calmness. Nothing is resolved in their life yet, but there is more clarity. Then, after a little more time, while praying, the person begins to see the solution to the problem. It's not that the holy person will dictate what to do. If that happens, it's time to go to a psychiatric hospital. That's a different matter, related to spirits. But if a person practices correctly according to the canons of spiritual practice, they understand their ability to connect with the holy person. They realize they are not so advanced to be given direct instructions. To receive that, one must elevate and purify themselves further, but there is contact. They feel that their life is changing. Raise your hand if you practice this method. Are there such people? Do you agree with me that this works, that it really works? The woman in the front row says she agrees. I look at her and see she doesn't seem mentally ill. Come up after the lecture and see she is a normal person and she prays. Imagine a normal person prays. How could this be? Religion is the opium for the people, the Bolsheviks said. Turns out it's a very practical thing. It really brings clarity. A person using this scientific method can truly change their life. It's worth trying. Try it. You'll see that it works very strongly. Not just works, but works very powerfully. And the psyche really calms down. Real understanding of what to do comes. Then you move in that direction and see very particular results. This all only works in the morning. Because after that, when the sun starts to rise, the mind immediately activates and thinking begins. It becomes very difficult for a person to focus deeply on the inside. They are already becoming agitated. It's hard for them to sit still. This is clearly visible. At 7 a.m., you will see how the structure of the prayer changes. There's no concentration like before. Something starts to urge you to do something. The environment, the atmosphere changes. We know that at this time, everything suddenly starts waking up. If a person stands by the river in nature at this time, there's silence around. And then suddenly the wind starts to blow. The wind blows because the energy of the sun has arrived. The atmosphere has changed. The birds have started singing. Everything changes at this time. Life begins and activates at this time. This means that external activities are activated and internal activities have finished. You can pray later too, no problem. But the effectiveness and depth of prayer manifests only for those people who, instead of sleeping during the time traditionally meant for rest, dedicate it to something very important and valuable in their life. They get up not to wander aimlessly. Some read a book, get up at 4 in the morning and ask, what should I do? What should I do? They walk around the apartment, go here and there, go outside and look at the birds. The birds are sitting, praying, chirping, and a person just watches them. Who's smarter in this case? Who is the intelligent one? We need to think about it. We need to develop discipline. Get up, start praying. Some people don't know what prayer is. There are other practices that prepare you for prayer. You can sit down and repeat, I wish everyone happiness, I wish everyone happiness. This is clearer. This develops a person. They begin to establish contacts with other people, and relationships really change. You repeat, I wish everyone happiness, and think about your supervisor. At first you think, he's such a jerk, I'd kill him. But you have to wish him happiness. Gradually, as you keep repeating, I wish everyone happiness, you begin to see how the picture changes. You start seeing good qualities. As soon as you start seeing good character traits, there is a chance to restore the relationship. You won't be fired from work.
Can I place a photo of my boss?
If you place a photo of your boss and pray early in the morning, If you begin to pray to the image of your boss, after a couple of months of prayer, you'll become exactly like them. You come to work, look at everyone in the same way, everything happens just the same. But if you place an image of a holy person, it's different. If you don't have an icon or a photo, nowadays this is a 5-minute task. Go ahead and buy it. What could be missing in our time? Such a concept doesn't even exist. Everything is very easy to get. You can easily find an icon or photo if the holy person lived not too long ago. It's all very accessible, a matter of a few days of searching. You set it up, begin to pray, and you'll gradually take on their qualities, becoming more like them. The only thing is, the little calf thinks it can take on the big wolf. This is how you can quickly become like your boss. In a month or two, you'll be just the same. To become like a holy person, it will take years of very intense prayer, and even then, you won't become exactly like them, but slowly start to resemble them in some way. Because there are serious things not easily attainable for us.